Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here in front of you today to talk to you about my climate resilience story and some of the things that we're doing at South Mountain Community College. South Mountain Community College is located in Phoenix, Arizona. It is a part of the Maricopa County Community College District. MCCD is one of the largest community college districts in the United States. We have Mesa Community College, which is the largest of the 10. I know there's Mesa in the house. And then we have South Mountain Community College, which is the smallest of the 10 community colleges. I am the only full-time geology instructor at South Mountain Community College. I have been there for 18 years now, and my specialty is disasters, geologic disasters, or the science of disasters. And so I have spent a lot of time thinking about and teaching my students about the science of hazards and how hazards can lead to disasters. But it wasn't until I did my sabbatical at FEMA's Emergency Management Institute that I started to think about the human side of disasters and starting to think about sustainability and resilience. And so in about 3 years ago, I came back to South Mountain Community College, and it is decided to revamp the geology department. And instead of being the geology department with the traditional geology classes, we moved to the geoscience department, and we started a sustainability certificate where the two core classes are sustainable cities and sustainable world, and now we're offering environmental science on the campus. South Mountain Community College is a Hispanic-serving, minority-serving institution. About 70% of our students identify as either being Hispanic or African American. We've got about 5,000 students, and most of them are part-time students. The average age is between 18 and 24. And one of the things that I feel really lucky about is the fact that last year we were invited to be a part of the Second Nature and Kresge Foundation's Climate Resilience in Urban Campuses and Communities, or CRUX program. And what they did was they wanted to do a pilot in 3 urban cities. They chose Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Portland. And for the Phoenix program, South Mountain was chosen, and we partnered with Arizona State University and the city of Phoenix to look at climate resilience on our campus and surrounding community. And so the first thing we did was we thought about, okay, resilience and climate change. And so what is it that, when we're talking about resilience, how can resilience prepare us, mitigate, adapt, recover, or even provide equity when we're talking about climate change and some of the incidences around climate change? And so we got together our stakeholders with ASU and the city of Phoenix, and we thought about, well, what is it that is impacting Phoenix the most? How many of you guys have been to Phoenix? Raise your hand. How many of you have been to Phoenix in this summertime? When you go to Phoenix in the summertime, you probably think it's pretty hot. This is right now typical weather forecast for Phoenix. You can see what it's like. But for a lot of you who are not Phoenicians and have only come to visit, I think this is more what you think of when you think of the climate in Phoenix, right? And so this whole idea of extreme heat. Well, unfortunately, extreme heat is a serious problem in the Valley of the Sun. We have heat-associated deaths every single year in Phoenix. And so when we got together with Arizona State and with the city of Phoenix and where we're located, we decided that for our CRUX program, resilience and climate change, we would focus on climate change in the form of heat. Could we make our students and our community more resilient to heat-related incidences? And so when we're thinking about this, the first thing that we had to do is, well, we had to figure out how resilient is our community already? And so we came up with the Individual Resilience Survey. And what we did was we wanted to get a snapshot or a small view of, well, how resilient are we? And so we put together this survey, and we had 263 faculty, staff, and students fill out this survey. 196 of the 263 were students. And it consisted of 41 questions. And we asked them things like, what are your top 3 emergencies or hazards that you are likely to face in your area? And so you can see from this that extreme heat was number 1, with 84.7% picking that as one of their top 3. And then the other top ones were floods, power outages, and dust storms. Well, from a hazards or geologic disasters point of view, those things are all related. If you live in the Valley of the Sun, every summer when we get to the extreme heat time of the year, that's when the monsoons kick up or the dust storms. Well, those dust storms are getting more powerful. They lead to flooding events, and sometimes flash flooding and power outage. So when you combine all those things together, can you imagine losing electricity in the city of Phoenix when it's 115 degrees out? And what that could mean for our community. We also asked them things about their sources of information when it comes to extreme heat advisories. Where are our community members getting their information? And is it in alignment with where information is being put out? And so you can see that the top areas are television, internet, text messaging. Text messaging is a big one. We asked them about heat vulnerability. And this one is really interesting because this whole idea of feeling hot in your house between April and October. And a lot of them said sometimes or very often. I have a funny story about this. My husband keeps our house really warm. And I come home and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. But one of the reasons why is because he has an app that will tell him how much we're spending on electricity. In the city of Phoenix, yeah, right? In the city of Phoenix, you can spend up to $300 a month cooling your house in the summertime, even more, depending on what your square footage is. And then if we look at, well, how do we cool down our houses? That's going to be electricity based. Most of our students are using air conditioning and fans to cool down their houses. And so their vulnerability to heat, again, imagine if we lost electricity during this hot time. And then community resources, going back to this idea of your house being too hot. Well, when we think about barriers to using air conditioning, this is my husband, cost of electricity. Like I said, he monitors it, and he will actually text me. I'm surprised he hasn't texted me today. Oh, we spent $7 yesterday on electricity. And so when I leave, that's when I'm like, you can turn the electricity, the air conditioning off. But when I come home, I want it a little cooler. But when we look at our students and we're looking at whether they're or a community of whether or not they can afford to keep their house at a level of air conditioning that is comfortable. A lot of them said that the cost of electricity is a barrier. And then when we talk about their house being too warm, have they left their house to go someplace cooler? 40% of them have left their house to go somewhere cooler. But then when we ask them, okay, are you using the resources like a heat refuge or a cooling system center? 100% of them said no. So again, when we're looking at this information, what we're doing is we're getting a snapshot of our community so that we will have data and that we can move forward with data-driven decisions on how to think about heat resilience and climate change, specifically for our South Mountain and the South Mountain area. After we collected all of our survey, we came together and we had a resiliency workshop for students, subject matter experts from ASU, City of Phoenix, NGOs, community leaders. We got a small group together, and what we did was we said, okay, can we talk about heat and heat-related incidences, and can we empower students to become ambassadors for our community and our campus? Can we provide them with the resources and the information that they need so that they can be more resilient when these activities happen? When it's the middle of the summer and it's getting really hot out, can they be a resource of information for their neighbor, for their family, for their friends in the community, even other students on the campus? And so it was a really great activity where not only did we bring them together and give them background information, but we engaged in this really cool activity where they got to discuss heat-related incidences in a fictional town and having to make decisions about how could we make our community more resilient. So where do we go from here? Well, one of the things we want to do is we want to take that survey and expand it across Maricopa Community College District. We're one of the largest community colleges in the United States. We serve 250,000 students, so you can imagine the information we could get on the baseline data for the city of, for the whole entire Phoenix Valley and our resiliency to heat. The other thing that we'd like to do is we'd like to offer this workshop on a much bigger scale. The grant that we had for the Kresge Foundation was small, and our workshop that we did was small. It was a pilot. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to scale that up. Imagine if every year we could run this kind of workshop where we're creating resilience ambassadors, student resilient ambassadors on the 200, 300, 500 level scale. And we can do that every single year. What would that mean for our community in the long run? And then for me personally, what I would like to do in my career and what I see is that I want to look at the role scarcity is playing in climate resilience. I listened to a really great podcast, The Hidden Brain. Have any of you guys listened to Hidden Brain podcast? Well, there was one episode on tunnel vision, and it's all about the fact that when we have a scarcity in our lives, this could be food, what we're talking about, shelter, money, time, security. What happens is that we actually fundamentally begin to process and think differently. Some of the things that we should be doing that are long-term better for us, we don't think about because we're so consumed with dealing with that scarce resource. And so we actually become hindered. And when we think about scarcity in our students' daily lives, we just had one about food or shelter or money. When you're dealing with those things, it's really hard for you to see the bigger picture and sometimes even get out of that scarcity mode. Then, from a science of disasters standpoint, when I look at disasters and disaster science, when a disaster happens, it's all about food, shelter, money, time, security. So the same things that are happening to our students in their daily lives when it comes to scarcity of these resources or insecurities, well, those are the same things that are happening when you have a climate-related incident. So maybe the way to go forward is by dealing with the science of scarcity and how we can make ourselves more resilient on our daily basis for food, shelter, money, time, security, all those things. And then we will be more resilient already for climate-related incidences, because the two of them aren't exclusive. They overlap. Thank you.